All right. Okay. Well, so for you guys that are watching this, you know that it's not live. um, we had some technical difficulties with some streaming and connecting to the Facebook Live, but we're going to go on just the same with the recording. So thanks for checking out the replay. I am excited to have my friend and business colleague, Liliana Germossen here.
Good morning.
And Lily, as we call her, is a founder and business strategist for Plum Strategies, management consulting firm. And we're going to talk through some crisis management strategies for small businesses. Obviously, where we are right now in terms of dealing with coronavirus and the impact that it's having on all of our lives, but clearly also impact on businesses. And so having some crisis management strategies in our toolkit is a great thing to have. So we'll talk through what that is, but I'll let Lily kind of jump in first and kind of introduce herself a little more and more about Plum Strategies.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for watching the replay. We definitely had a little bit of that technical difficulty, but we just, move forward with it. My name is Liliana Germossen, and I work my organization, Plum Strategies. I am a business strategist. I work with small and mid-sized businesses to find solutions to the problem, solutions to your business issues. I typically focus on four things. Predominantly business strategy, working on management and some projects specifically, process improvement, change management, and new market expansion. And you can check me out at plumstrategies.com, a little bit more about me specifically and some of the work and details there. And you can definitely contact me there as well.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So I guess first we can kind of dive into what you feel like or how you would describe the importance of management strategies just as a general thing to have, not necessarily in a crisis situation, but generally speaking, how would you describe the importance of having those management strategies in place?
One of the things that I tend to explain to most with what I do is that small businesses, specifically entrepreneurs, are either talent or passion driven. When folks open their businesses because they're really good at what they do or they really love what they do, right? And they not necessarily are these business, savvy individuals that know how to deal with all of the solutions. And that's absolutely okay. You're great at what you do, and that's why you are great at it and have the clientele. But we have experts that work on the other things. So it's important so you can really affect and see it on your bottom line. Like, this is important to have, staying afloat during a crisis and emergency, obviously, but to move forward, to be efficient, to be, financially, set. So yeah. That's why it's important.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I think you're right. One of my favorite books is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And he talks about exactly that. When people, they have what's called an entrepreneurial seizure, because they're like, oh, I could do this for myself. And They go in with that technician mindset, but they forgot they also have to be the manager and they also have to be the visionary. And then they start to hate what they're doing because they're doing what they were trying to get away from. They basically just employed themselves.
Right. So they're managing a business, which they're like, okay, well, I didn't really want to do this. I want to do the thing I love and make a lot of money doing that, or the thing that I'm really good at. And then it's like, oh, I have to deal with people and manage people and operate. And that comes in as you grow. It gets more difficult. It gets more challenging. The battles in the hills that you got to get over are much more challenging. So it's really important to have, a strategy, a management plan implemented, because as you grow, the challenges become much more difficult.
Yeah. And so with Plum Strategies, you help them to develop the management strategy, or are you coming in, is it proactive or reactive or both?
Both.
Okay.
But I definitely push for the proactive, which we'll get into some of that a little bit further down through our questions. But absolutely both. I mean, clients do come most of the time is when they have an issue, because that's what entrepreneurs tend to look for. The help, it's when there are where there is a problem, not necessarily prior to. And some of the things that we'll discuss today, that's what you want to do. You want to be proactive, so you don't have to get to the situation. You already have the plan in action before you have to deal with, you deal with the crisis. So
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. What are some of the main strategies that you think are the most important for, I say small businesses, but businesses? We specifically work with small businesses, but I would imagine that there's a lot of the same strategies
yeah.
in place.
So some of the main strategies just as a business in general, and then obviously some for because of crisis, but client management is a huge tool, right? Because regardless of what or where you are, what's going on, you want to always have access to be able to relate a message to all your clientele and prospects. That's very important. And just being able to access everyone at the same time. One of the things that we're seeing today that I think the majority of small businesses were pretty shy about this, unless you're in the tech industry, is the
Mm-hmm.
remote work, the remote access, the project management skill set. And there is so much of these companies like aggressively trying to do these seminars and teaching their employees how to do these things remotely all at the same time, really short span of time. So being able to call in for meetings, Zoom meetings, Slack. There's so many different tools that you can utilize to be able to have meetings, deal with projects, and get messages, that it doesn't necessarily require you to be in person. I think that's something that's very important to implement when things are calm. So when
Yeah.
something happens, you can be able, it's second nature. It's not like we're learning this at the same time that we're trying to be business as usual,
Yeah.
go forward with regular stuff. So it's really intense. And one of the things that I've noticed really quickly, now I think the term that's used more as of the past month is crisis management plan.
Yep.
But before, what I've implemented with other companies are emergency management plans
Mm-hmm.
because of 9/11, because of terrorist attacks, there were others. But I've dealt with clients that there's been fires in their office buildings and they didn't have access to their office for a week or two. What do you do
Mm-hmm.
then, right? So you planning that is huge, and not just planning or having an emergency management plan, but the communication that's included with it, right?
Right.
Who, how, where, and how frequently, who's responsible to getting information to every employee, how frequently are we responding to certain things. I have clients that we work with, some of those where we have very specific schedules of each department. This is when we discuss with the lead of every other day at 2 p.m. This is the conversation that's to be had for 30 minutes, just to touch base and see, even if there's no changes. But having that implemented, so in the event that there is an emergency, makes it a
Mm-hmm.
lot easier to really kind of jump, get into that. So I
Yeah.
would definitely say those things are, some of the things that I recommend for
Yeah.
strategy for management.
And I think too, to piggyback on that, if you have it ahead of time,
Right.
now you've kind of taken a little bit of the emotion out of it too, because then when it
Absolutely.
becomes having to do all of that and you're feeling emotional about it, 9/11 was an extraordinarily emotional situation. This
Yep.
is an extraordinarily emotional situation for a lot of folks,
Yep.
dealing with isolation and not being able to see loved ones. I've got a grandmother that's in a nursing home that I can't go visit, so
Right.
it's that kind of, those types of things it's already heightened. But at
Yes.
least if you have a plan in place, you can kind of refer back to that and say, okay, this is what we typically do. We just have to do it in a little bit of a different fashion. Kind of brings that emotional level down so you can, quasi operate with a clear head.
Right, because that is exactly, you definitely hit it in the head there, because once you are emotional, it's a lot harder to be a little bit more level-headed with certain things.
Right.
And strategically, it's just like, okay, what do I do? And you're kind of still dealing with how you're feeling and what's going on and the fear.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is important. And it's a lot easier just to reference to something. And of course, there will be some changes as things progress because every situation is different.
Right.
But at least you have, that guideline of how to go about doing something. and makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Something else too that I discussed with some other clients that I think it's important for the management strategy, it's if you are on the mid-size of the smaller mid-sized business,
Mhm.
outsourcing your accounting and HR services, because when you are not available or accessible into your spaces, it makes it a lot easier to process payroll, to deal with HR related things if
Mhm.
you don't have to necessarily deal with it in house, right? Because I saw
Right.
that that was a lot of the issues recently scrambling with some of the companies where they
Mm.
had to figure out how to process payroll and, what do we do because our machines are here and we have a very specific check printing printer
Right.
and this is the way we do it. And it's like, you can definitely outsource payroll with smaller companies.
Mhm.
There's a lot of services out there. The same with HR solutions because it's a lot easier to, call a you and say, "Hey, Stephanie, this is what we're doing. What you recommend,"
Right.
as opposed to an HR in-house. Even though, of course, as once you get a certain size, it's absolutely necessary to do so.
Sure.
But those things are two things that definitely I've seen in the past month that has been, if they outsource those things, it'll be a lot easier to mainstream and make decisions, to
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah. That, I mean, those are good points. So in terms of our small businesses, our babies and our core, right? Those that are large enough to have employees and all these other pieces of logistics that they've got to make a business run efficiently. Where do you see that they make the most mistakes in terms of developing a management strategy or a series of management strategies? What's their biggest, or a couple of their biggest challenges or mistakes that they make?
I think there's two huge ones that really kind of, thinking about this. One is, like we mentioned earlier, small businesses tend to be reactive as opposed
Mm.
to being proactive.
Mm-hmm.
So they deal with the problem once the problem is there, right? And that's when small business want to kind of figure out how to deal with this, and the problem continues to grow. It's not like the problem pauses while you find a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Here you are scrambling to try to find a solution, and the problem is getting worse, right? Um, but if you've already have been forward thinking and working on being proactive, worst case scenario, in the event of X, Y, and Z, how will we respond?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of put together, again, it's a guideline. It's not going to be the answer to everything, but it makes it a lot easier to come to something that you can look at when you are in crisis mode, as opposed to being super, uberly overwhelmed when there's crisis, when there's emotional. It's like it's difficult to even think,
Mm-hmm.
and having to come up with a solution then. So I think that one of the biggest things is definitely being reactive as opposed to being proactive,
Yeah.
thinking that certain things won't happen, and we'll deal with that when we get there. But when you get there, the problem gets bigger and bigger. It doesn't wait for you to find the solution.
Yep.
So you want to be ahead of that. And the other one is to really understand your industry, and where others have failed. Because if you can see and really do your research and understand what your industry consists of and where others have failed, it prepares you for those situations,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about being proactive. But I think that that's something that's really important for the smaller businesses to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that the proactive approach, it's hard for a lot of people to adjust because it's that technician mindset. They went
Mhm.
into business to head
Right.
down and get
Hmm.
that thing done and crank out as many services or as many widgets or whatever it is
Yeah.
as possible to make that money. But you're right. It can't be, it's one thing to be visionary,
Yep.
um, but then there's a reality to that vision. That we've got to work backwards to make
Right.
sure we've got all those pieces and things like that in place. So
Exactly.
yeah, and
Exactly.
understand, it's something else you mentioned that I think that second piece is understanding the market and the industry and where failure has occurred.
Hmm.
Because the other piece of that is if you can find where the failure is, even specifically as it relates to service-based businesses, you can
Hmm.
also fill the gap.
Yep.
And now you've created a niche for your business where you have your ears to the ground, so you know where your client base is failing, or needs a gap filled, and you can fill that gap where other businesses that are in your industry have failed to fill that gap. So now we're talking about, some market expansion, and then they need to come and talk to Lily.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So in terms of ways, are there particular ways for small businesses? I know we've talked a lot about, being proactive instead of reactive for small businesses, but what should they do? Like, what are some key pieces of things they should do to prepare for a crisis? Like, if you could give them like a mini checklist, what would be a few things on that checklist?
Sure. So based on, we touched on a couple of those things, which is, the management strategy, an emergency management plan. I think it's huge. And, outsourcing some really key, of their services, just because it allows them to really kind of be accessible anywhere else. But another thing that is very important is having a team of experts that you have a relationship with, right? Especially on the small business side, if you cannot afford to have, a HR person on site, just have a consultant that you work with. But I have it down to 5 team of experts that I think it's really important for businesses to have access to.
Sure.
Legal, HR, CPA, insurance, and a business strategy. Because it's about being able to lean on these individuals depending on the crisis. Some crises will require all 5 of these experts, others will require 1 or 2, right? But you need to have your network, because like we were discussing previously, as an HR consultant, I'm certain you're getting hits left and right, and you do have your very specific clients, and there's a certain amount of folks that you can take on. But if you don't have a relationship with some individuals, it'll be a little bit harder for you to just drop things and just work with those individuals, as opposed to folks that you've already worked relationship and or have had as clients in the past, or are your network. It's important to have that. So I think that those things are very, very important. Having those experts readily available for you, key individuals that you can think of and and you have access to, is important. And then also not to ignore your sales pipeline. I think one of the things that companies freak out about is just kind of, okay, well, we are in crisis mode. We got to figure out how to keep our employees and absolutely, it's important. But one of the things you also have to understand is you have things on your pipeline. Don't ignore them because the economy is being threatened. Because what happens is that those companies and services and clientele, they too are in crisis mode. And if you can work together, you will be surprised on who wants to continue to push through so they can make it over this hump.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I think it's really important. Don't ignore your sales pipeline. Reach out to your previous clients, reach out to your current clients, reach out to prospects. Let them know that you're thinking of them, you're accessible. We can still talk about certain things. Obviously, if things are pushed a little bit, that is absolutely fine, but you need to stay in front of them because it is important.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
those are some of the things that I would say small businesses should definitely continue to do because it is important. I've had some folks that were on my pipeline that are reaching out now like, hey, I still want to figure out how we can work because given, the current economic climate, I want to push even harder. And it's like, okay, well, let's work on that. And it's important to really kind of stay in front of those folks.
Yeah. One of the ladies I did Facebook Live with a couple weeks ago, Lisa Anderson, she's actually my business strategist. And she had posted on her in her group page that whenever there's a crisis situation, there's always opportunity. But there's a difference between capitalizing on an opportunity and being an opportunist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you're providing solutions to the problem. You're not necessarily, we're not going to milk the situation. Everybody's struggling at the same time, but there's opportunities that you can definitely, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I kind of speaking of which, big opportunist comment, I read that Amazon terminated 39,000 of their retailers because they were price gouging.
Mm. Yes.
Capital, being an opportunist, they know that people need Clorox wipes, they're charging them $30 a bottle. I mean, I'm just using it as an example. I don't know if that's really what it was, but I would imagine there were things along those lines that were becoming high demand, and as opposed to, providing the service and developing the need, they decided that, they wanted to make as much money as they could, and they don't work for Amazon anymore. So
yeah.
Yeah. So where do you see small businesses on the other side of this crisis situation? What are they going to learn, or what should they be learning that's going to make them different or better on the other side?
I think that folks are going to get very creative. Some of the things that need to happen and will be happening is diversifying your services, creating new revenue, strategies. You might have been doing 4 or 5 services you provided, but now 3 of those services are not as, sought after. So you're going to tap into other things. So it's creating these opportunities like we discussed, right? So now I think that's very, very different. You're going to start focusing on that. There's, other markets that you can consider that are part of your expertise, but you didn't focus before. Very important. I think on the other side of the crisis, I think companies are going to definitely now understand the remote access and remote work more. I think they're going to be a lot more open to that. I think also they're going to understand how that can definitely cut overhead expenses on rent space, understand that people can still be efficient. Prior to me going and working for myself, I've worked remote for quite some time. And I'm like so surprised when companies don't understand, like, you can be so efficient. It's all about hiring the right people. People work really hard, if not harder, when you work from home. Because it's nonstop, right? Like you roll over and then here's the computer. So they're going to realize that. I think that they're going to come to terms with that quite a bit. And really kind of rolling with the punches. I think that this is the companies that stay afloat are going to be stronger. They're going to come out stronger with that. And they're just going to push forward. One other thing I think it's going to be really big, and companies should consider on the other side of this crisis is strategic partnerships. Building relationships and teaming together to offer services as opposed to just your service. Packaging deals and going after each other's networks together. We can all eat get a piece of the pie. It could just be a little smaller, but we're all in it together. I think that's something that's going to be really, really important.
I was talking to an employment attorney. Siobhan Smith was the first one of these that I did.
And I did watch that one.
Oh, yeah.
I did. Yeah.
And we had an offline conversation about exactly that. Like, how can we work together to offer something to these businesses that we know that they need, that will make sense. So we've known each other for 3 years now, and we've done some things together. We've, had referral business back and forth, but you're right, like building that strategic partnership to actually be able to offer a package service. That's now, like for me, it's the HR communication strategy and understanding how to communicate that out to the employees. But there's also a legal component, because there's laws tied up in that, and what happens if and what happens if. And so being able to put those things together now with a legally sound policy process document that we've been able to deliver to a client, so that is key. And another thing that's really important, and I say this all the time, and Lisa said this as well, your network is your net worth.
Absolutely.
And if there was no better time to tap into that network while you're working remote and doing all this reaching out and conversations with people, now would definitely be a fantastic time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly going back to just staying on your pipeline. Like, there were cold ones, warm ones, hot leads, prospect in the future. this is when, and this is when you should continue to push through and reach out and stay in front of, because your network is your net worth. And
Yeah.
it's absolutely important to really kind of continue to stay in front of those individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Any closing thoughts, advice you want to share with the good people?
We've covered quite a bit. I mean, it's all about this is a scary time for everybody. And especially as a small business owner, it's scary. But this is a time where, we have to really think outside the box and push forward, because, our safety nets are pulled from under us. We don't know what to expect. So,
Yeah.
you have to take the chances. You have to push forward. You have to get creative. We will all get through this. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's going through the same thing. It's not like it's a city. It's not like it's a market. It's everyone. This is something we've never experienced to this extreme.
Yeah.
But we'll get through this. We're working at it together. However that may look on the other side, but just, think outside the box. And this is the time where you can take those chances that you were afraid to do.
Yes.
Post that information, get online. I've never done these before.
Yeah.
And here we are. But this is the time to do that, because you want to be able to get out there and get in front of folks, however possible. You can't go to networking events at the moment. So this is
Right.
this is the new networking, right?
That's right. That's right. I can reach out and touch.
Right. 6 feet away, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Thank you so much for this great information. This has been, it's a lot of nuggets in here. And I'll be sharing, of course, I have to now because we couldn't do it live, but
Right.
so I'm going to be sharing, of course, the video out, and some of the information we talked about on that, and just kind of summarizing that as we go through or into next week, just talking about some of the things that we need to prepare for as it relates to, developing these management strategies. But share one more time how folks can connect with you should they be in the need for your services with Plum Strategies.
Absolutely. The best way to reach me is at my website. So it's www.plumstrategies.com, and it's strategies plural. .com, and you can access my information there. You can contact me there. Send me email. All the information is there. That's the best way to find me. If not, LinkedIn, Liliana Germossen. But I think the best way is just find me on the website. Everything's there. You can have access to my LinkedIn. You can have access to everything else. So that's the best way to find me.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, you guys, y'all heard her. She gave some great information. Again, thanks for watching the replay. Feel free to share this out as much as you like with those that are in your network, with information that may be able to help them and help others. And that's what really the whole goal of these videos and the Facebook Lives are for, is to really just provide another platform for us to be able to disseminate information and reach the masses, because we've got to lean on each other now, probably more than ever. So
yes. Yes.
I thank you. I thank you. Hold tight. Don't hang up.
Thank
All right.
you. Bye.
You're welcome.